and I'm the chair of the National Transportation Safety Board. And with me today is Troy Lloyd. He is our investigator in charge, our lead investigator of this investigation. The National Transportation Safety Board is an independent federal agency that's charged by Congress with investigating every civil aviation accident in the United States and significant events in other modes of transportation, including public transit. We're here to investigate the collision of two New York City transit trains which collided with one train striking another train at a crossover just north of the 96th Street station. The striking train at the time was a non-revenue train, meaning there were no passengers on board. The struck train had about 200 people on board, and we are aware that there are injuries to some individuals. We have seen different numbers on those injuries. So I would say, as far as confirming numbers, please reach out to local authorities. But let me state that on behalf of the National Transportation Safety Board, I want to extend our deepest sympathies to those that were injured in this collision. Our thoughts are always with those who are victims of a terrible tragedy or accident, and we hope for a speedy recovery for each of you. So this was our first full day on scene. The team, most of the team, arrived around 7:45 a.m. this morning. We have a few others that came in from California, from the state of Washington, and then from Ohio. We have a number of specialists in different areas of the investigation, which I will get into in just a second. Our first order of business was meeting at MTA headquarters. We wanted to take some time to get together with MTA, New York City Transit, the local union officials, and the state oversight agency. And what we did in that meeting was just give a preview on what we're going to be doing that day, give them information about what we might be looking for or what we might need, and how we intend to proceed throughout the day. Then we went straight to the scene. That's usually our first order of business. We wanted to see the two damaged trains in particular. Now I want to describe these two trains. Both trains are made up of 10 cars, but they are a set of 5 cars, a coupler, and a second set of 5 cars. And so what most of you do know is that at some point on the striking train, that's the non-revenue train, at some point there were passengers on board, and an unruly passenger began activating the emergency brakes in numerous cars. That in turn triggered an alert to the train operator, and the train began to go into emergency, which means it stops the train. In order to move the train crew has to reset the brakes. So they began, on direction from the control center, to reset the brakes, except brakes in the third car back did not reset. And they tried to reset them, so they talked with the control center, and then the control center instructed the crew to cut out the brakes on the first 5 cars and cut out the power, and then discharge the passengers at the 79th Street station and move the train set to the 240th Street rail yard. At this point, there are 3 people on the train, 3 crew members. You have, as I said, the second set of cars, that's the 5 back cars that are operational. They can move and they have brakes. The front 5 cars, or the leading 5 cars, have no brakes, have no power. It's essentially rolling stock. And so they begin pushing from the 6th car, the 5 cars ahead of them, they push the whole train because they're going towards the rail yard. We've got 2 crew members in the lead car, and we've got 1 crew member who's pushing in the 6th car. The 2 in front are serving as flaggers. They are the eyes and ears for the operator in the 6th car. We know that they passed through some signals, approach signals, and a home signal, and in that configuration, in that push mode, that train struck a northbound train at a crossover. The non-revenue train then was pushed to the right, hit a wall, and the first car is pushed upwards. The train that was struck with the passengers was pushed to the left, and then both cars derailed. There is a lot of damage to the trains. There's a lot of damage along the track. And so now we have to figure out why this happened, how this happened. So over the next few days, we're documenting the scene. We are here to gather the perishable evidence, and what that means is the evidence, everything that goes away once New York City Transit puts everything back into operation. So we want to get the perishable evidence and begin to collect the factual information for our investigation. Once we can go through the factual portion of our investigation, we will then get to analysis and issue a final report. But right now, we're not here to come up with a probable cause. We are here to get the perishable evidence. Again, our mission overall is to always understand how something happened, why something happened, an event happened, to prevent it from happening again. So let me talk about our specialists. We have a team of 13 here. We have specialists in operations and human performance. What they will be looking at is the performance of the train crew and others, including the control center. They'll look at training, they'll look at qualifications, and they'll look at system safety or safety management systems. We have specialists in signals. They will be looking at the signal systems, the wayside detectors, the wayside signal systems, and they will get all the signal downloads. We have personnel focused on mechanical. What they're looking at is the trains themselves. They're looking at the train consist, and they're looking at the brakes, and anything mechanical with both trains. Then we have investigators focused on crash worthiness. What they're looking at is they're examining the injuries to the occupants as it relates to the dynamics of the crash. And finally, we'll have one investigator look at track, but we've essentially ruled out any track issues at this time. So before I take questions, there is one issue I do want to raise, and that's New York City transit trains don't have 3 things that are key to safety and key to investigations: inward-facing cameras, outward-facing cameras, and event data recorders. Event data recorders. What event data recorders provides is the speed of the trains, the braking commands or braking inputs, the throttle position, operator commands. Now, why this is important? Sure, it's important for our investigations. It will help us most accurately determine what occurred as a result of an event. However, what it's really beneficial for is the operator to figure out how to make safety change early on in an investigation. And they can do that right away. Now, granted, they're going to get access to our information. We have a great relationship with MTA, with New York City Transit, and with others, and we're appreciative of that. They've been very helpful at giving us information that we need and being very open. It's a collaborative relationship, but we need event data recorders and inward and outward facing cameras. We made this recommendation in 2015 to the Federal Transit Administration to require transit systems to have them, to install them on new and refurbished trains. That recommendation is currently in the open unacceptable status because nothing was done. So with that, I want to take some questions. What we're going to do is I'll call on you. You'll give me your name and affiliation. I'd like you to stick to one question, but we can do multiple rounds and I can come back to you. You were first.
Andrew Siff from NBC4 here in New York. You mentioned that the crew said they were instructed by rail control to move the car to the 240th Street yard. Did that instruction include ignoring a red signal, or were they told, don't worry about the red signals, you're clear to go?
The question is on the instructions that were provided for by the control center to the crew with respect to the signals. There were 2 approach signals and 1 home signal. We don't have that information yet, but that is part of our investigation. And we will get that to understand what occurred, what instructions were provided. Yes.
So right now, to you, does this appear to be human error?
The question is whether this appears to be human error. It is too early to determine probable cause, whether it's human error, whether it's mechanical, whether it has something to do with the signal system. Here's what I'll say about human error, though, and this is our experience at the NTSB. It's easy to blame humans. Human error is a symptom of a system that needs to be redesigned. Human error is always a symptom of a system that needs to be redesigned. So that's why we look broadly at all the factors, because it's not just the operators that are part of this. And so we'll look at that as part of the investigation, but I would urge people to be cautious about just blaming, especially blaming the train crew. We don't know. We'll look at what actions were taken. Yes, and then I'll go here on the floor. Yes.
You mentioned the unruly passenger that was on the non-revenue train that was hitting the emergency brakes. Any other information about who that might have been, why they were on that train, and what role that could have played in this whole incident?
Yeah, the question was about the unruly passenger, and do I know more information on that? I don't have any more information at this time. I had asked questions earlier about the passenger, but I don't have answers for that at this time. But what I do know is that they were pulling the emergency brakes in multiple cars, not just one car, and that set the stage for everything that happened afterwards, including the fact that the brakes had to be cut out from that first section of the train and the 5 cars. Yes.
Nina Clark from New York One, you mentioned human error is a symptom of systems that need improvement and changing. So do the emergency brakes that this person, unruly passenger, was pulling and caused this entire accident to happen, well, potentially contributed to the accident. Do those systems need to be improved? Does it need to be harder for people to be able to have access to those things going forward, and what does that even look like?
Yeah, the question is on the emergency brakes and access by passengers in each of the cars. I mean, these are for safety, for the safety of passengers, so that they can pull on an emergency handle, and that automatically that alert is to the train operator. we'll take a look at that, but and that'll be part of our investigation, but we don't have any conclusions on that at this time. Yes?
Nolan Hicks with the Post, the New York Post. The train, as it's exiting 96th Street, has a red signal, according to the president of New York City Transit this morning. The train continued. The way the signaling system works is if there's a red signal and if a train goes past it, it's supposed to trigger the emergency brakes automatically. Do you have any idea why the brakes on the train weren't triggered as it passed the red signal?
Well, first of all, the question is on the signal systems and some previous statements that may have been made about the signal system. First of all, let me just say, we have to independently confirm all this. So I cannot say what the signal was showing. What I will say is if you have a train set of 10 cars and the first 5 cars don't have brakes, it's not going to trigger anything.
So if I could just clarify, if the brakes are cut out on the first 5 cars, if it were to run past the signal, there's no braking system for the signal to trigger, is what you're saying?
The braking system is operational on the 6th car through the 10th car. That's correct.
The lead car is hitting the signal, I guess. So where does the signal kick in and hit the train's brakes until it stops? Is it car 1 or car 6?
So where does the signal kick in? I mean, it's a matter of seconds when they pass the signal. There were 3 signals, 2 are approach signals. Those 2 approach signals essentially tell the train to slow down. That is something we have to look at. You know, part of this is also we have to factor in the speed of the train at the time. So just knowing, you know, we're not able to say right now on the first day of the investigation that this is how far it went through a signal or before a signal, because we really have to look at the speed of the train and the conditions at the time. But that is something that we'll be able to look at in the investigation, and I do hope to have more substantive information tomorrow to share. Yes, and then we'll go over here, sir. Yeah.
You may have just hinted at this, but cognizant of the fact that we don't have data recorders, we've been told that this was a low speed crash that's being watched days. Can you help my readers understand roughly what that means? I know we have a number of how fast were these trains going?
So the question is how fast the trains were going. We do have to look at that, but also the question is about the event data recorders. Event data recorders really capture a lot of information. It's not just the speed of the train, it's braking applications, it's commands by the train operator, everything from and throttle positions on the train. So all actions that were taken by the operator, for the most part, when that operator interfaces with the train, would be recorded by a data recorder. That information then is used in our investigation, and it is concrete information that helps in our investigation, but also provides information early to the operator to address safety. And that information is accurate information that can be relied on. What we will do in our investigation is piece together through interviews, through documentation of evidence, evidence on the track, what we find as a result of our inspection of the mechanical equipment, and so forth, and we'll piece that together as part of our investigation. But if you have a data recorder and you have that information immediately, it helps significantly with the ability of the operator to address safety very early. I actually promised him we won't estimate on speed. We'll provide speed when we have that information, but thank you.
New York Times. Can you talk a little bit about why you decided to come to this incident when there were no major injuries or fatalities compared to other incidents that have happened in the area? Train derailment with the LIWR and NTA employee that was killed recently.
Yeah, so the question is why we came to this event. This is the second accident on New York City Transit's property in 37 days. That's not typical. So the NTSB has been very focused on system safety, so we wanted to take a look. We've also been very focused on transit safety. Coming here, we are going to want to look at the entire system, including how it is managed and supervised.
So that means you're looking beyond just this.
Repeat, please.
So that means you're looking just beyond this incident, you're looking through the whole system?
The question is, are we looking at the entire system? What I mean by system is the operations, not system as far as trackage. Yes and yes. Go ahead.
You mentioned the recommendation that you made to the Federal Commission about the data recorders and other items that can improve safety. How much fault would New York City Transit bear for not taking those steps on their own?
How much fault would New York City Transit bear if they did not install recorders or inward or outward facing cameras? I mean, there is no regulation right now. As far as liability, that's not something we get into, but with respect to enforcement of standards, there are no standards on it. And it's Federal Transit Administration is who we provided that recommendation to. So, yeah.
So following up this question, like when you talk about the lack of cameras and the lack of this data recorder, do you mean that the lack of new technology in MTA is making it more dangerous?
The question is the lack of technology and event data recorders making MTA more dangerous? No, it's not making them more dangerous. What it is it's a great source of information, a pretty comprehensive source of information, not just for us in our investigation, but to the operator to make safety improvements. Yes?
You spent nearly a decade at unions. What have you heard from the unions today? You met with union leaders. Are they feeling like their members aren't safe? You've got a person killed a couple weeks ago, and then you've got one of their members at least injured yesterday.
Yeah, the question is our conversations with the unions and how they're feeling about this particular accident and the one that just occurred 37 days ago. I know for a fact I have talked with TWU Local 100 and TWU's International Union. We have met with the supervisor union, but that was part of a group meeting where we talked about how we're going to proceed throughout the day. There will be more opportunity for conversation with the unions and with the train crew. Yeah.
If I could follow up on the questions about the event data recorders and what information is known and isn't known. The number of lines do have computer monitoring. They don't have computer control, they have computer monitoring. So is all of this unknowable, or is some of it just assembled in different places and less readily accessible than you would like?
Question is on the event data recorders, is it unknowable? The rest of the data. No, we will be able. Let me allow. We will be able to conduct our investigation as we always do. We have other systems that don't have inward and outward facing cameras but do have event data recorders. It's key information to any investigation, and that information is solid information, and it's information that we can rely upon, and it's early information. That's what's key, not just to us but also for the operator. Yes.
So you're saying it's known that the first 5 cars had brake systems bypassed. What else is known about the condition of that train if not produced as advertised?
The question is what is known right now on the condition of the non-revenue train, that's the striking train. We know, like, as I mentioned, it's a 10-car train. in two sections. The rear 5 cars were operational, they were running normal, full brakes, full power. The leading 5 cars, no power, no brakes, and that was because the crew was instructed to cut that out so that they could move the train. And frankly, they couldn't move the train at the time because one of the cars, the brake wouldn't reset. And so they were told to cut that out and then move forward and push the equipment towards the rail yard. Okay, one more.
Can you talk about how common that is if the train's brakes won't reset? How common is it for the MTA to get someone in the conductor's cab and try to drive the train back to the yard? Try to drive the train back to the yard using the middle conductor's cab and using a flag on the front.
I mean, yeah.
Brakes in emergency.
Yeah. So it's how often does this occur that you would have an operator moving the train from the 6th car back and operators at the front flagging? We don't know the extent that has occurred on New York City transit systems. It really depends on breakdown of trains, and so that is part of our investigation. We will ask that in interviews. In other systems, there are push-pull systems in transit all the time. This was a little bit different, where you have the the crew in the leading car acting as flaggers. And so that what's key here is that there's communication between the crew in the leading car and the crew member that was operating and pushing the train forward from the 6th car. Thanks very much. And if you have additional questions or want to monitor our website for additional events that will take place here, please monitor ntsb.gov or anything on any of our social media handles. Thank you.
Thank you.